The glass walls of the Helix Corp executive boardroom reflected the glowing skyline of New Avalon. Tall silver towers reached into the clouds, their lights shining like stars in the dark evening sky. Inside the room, everything was sharp and modern. The long oval table had a smooth surface that gleamed under the bright white lights above. Every seat was filled with well-dressed executives in expensive suits. They spoke in calm, polished voices about numbers, contracts, and interstellar trade. Then the heavy doors slid open with a quiet hiss. A man in a dark gray janitor's uniform stepped inside holding a small maintenance tablet in one hand. His name tag read Rowan Hale. He was tall but not imposing. His hair was dark with streaks of gray, and his hands were rough from years of physical work. He moved with slow, steady steps, as if he had thought carefully about walking into this room. At the far end of the table sat Aldrin Voss, the CEO of Helix Corp. He was a man used to control and attention. His suit was perfectly pressed, his silver, cufflinks catching the light every time he moved his hands. His voice could command entire planets, and he knew it. When his sharp blue eyes landed on the janitor, his expression shifted from confusion to irritation. "What are you doing here?" Aldrin's voice cut through the quiet conversation in the room. Rowan didn't answer right away. He glanced around as if measuring each person in the room. Some looked surprised, others annoyed. No one expected to see a maintenance worker in this place, much less during an executive meeting. "I asked you a question," Aldrin said, his tone rising. "You don't belong here." The words seemed to hang in the air, sharp and cold. A few board members exchanged uncomfortable looks. The company had strict rules about who could enter the upper floors. These were the levels where decisions worth billions were made, where contracts with other star systems were signed. A janitor had no business here. Rowan's voice was calm when he finally spoke. "I'm here for my daughter." The room went silent. The words were simple, but they carried weight. Aldrin leaned back slightly, studying Rowan as if trying to see past his plain uniform. "Your daughter?" Aldrin repeated, his voice more measured now. Rowan nodded once. His face didn't change, but there was something in his eyes. A steady determination that didn't match the quiet tone of his voice. He didn't look like a man who wandered into the wrong room. He looked like a man who had come here for a reason. From the other side of the table, a woman with short silver hair whispered to the person next to her. The whisper was too soft for Rowan to hear, but he could feel the shift in the room. The board members were curious now. Some of them knew names and rumors, but none of them had ever connected this quiet janitor to anything important. "I don't know who you think you're talking to," Aldrin said, his voice cool again. "This is a secure meeting. You will leave now, or security will escort you out." Rowan didn't move. He stood at the edge of the table, looking directly at the CEO. "You have my daughter," he said, "and I'm not leaving without her." The board members sat perfectly still. The statement was bold, and it came from a man who seemed completely out of place in this shining room of power. Aldrin's fingers tapped once against the polished surface of the table. "I have no idea what you're talking about," he said, smoothly, but his eyes didn't leave Rowan's face. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," Rowan replied. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the room. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the city outside the windows. Then Aldrin stood, straightening his suit jacket. "I'll give you one chance to walk out of here and pretend this never happened," he said. "Whatever you think you know, you're mistaken." Rowan's gaze didn't shift. 2 years ago, my daughter Lyra left Earth on a research mission funded by this company. You told her team's families she went missing, but I've seen the messages. I know she's alive. I know where you're keeping her." A quiet ripple went through the room. Several executives glanced at each other. Aldrin's jaw tightened. "You're making serious accusations," the CEO said. "I'm stating facts," Rowan answered. His voice was calm, but his words were firm. "And I didn't come here to argue. I came here to take her home." The stillness in the room felt heavy. Every person knew this was no longer just an interruption. It was the beginning of something larger. Rowan had stepped into a world where people like him were invisible, yet he stood here refusing to be ignored. Aldrin finally turned to a security officer standing near the door. "Escort him out." The officer took a step forward, but Rowan didn't move. Instead, he set his small maintenance tablet on the table. Its screen lit up, showing a series of encrypted messages. Even from across the table, a few of the board members could see the Helix Corp logo in the message headers. There were names, dates, and fragments of sentences that suggested something far from ordinary. "This isn't the place to settle this," Rowan said, his eyes still locked on Aldrin. "But I wanted you to see that I'm not guessing." "I know." For the first time, Aldrin hesitated. He didn't look at the tablet. He didn't need to. His gaze stayed fixed on the man in front of him, trying to read the truth in his eyes. Rowan stepped back toward the door, but his voice carried one last time before he left. "I'll be back for her." The doors slid shut behind him, leaving the boardroom silent except for the faint hum of the city beyond the glass. In that silence, something shifted in the air. The executives didn't know whether to see Rowan as a threat or as a man driven by something more powerful than any corporate contract. But one thing was certain. He was not finished. And deep down, Aldrin Voss knew it. The following morning, Helix Corp's upper floors were quieter than usual. The early sunlight filtered through the wide glass panels, painting the hallway floors in soft gold. Employees moved quickly between offices, but their eyes often flicked toward one another as if sharing a secret without speaking. The events from the night before had already spread beyond the boardroom. Someone had seen the janitor leave the top floor escorted by security. Someone else had overheard part of the conversation. And now, whispers traveled from one department to another. Rowan Hale had asked for his daughter. Nobody on the lower floors knew much about him. For years, he had been the quiet man who cleaned the empty conference rooms after meetings, repaired faulty vents in the storage bays, and replaced old wiring in the maintenance shafts. He was polite but distant, the kind of man who could walk through a crowded room and leave without being noticed. But last night, he had walked into the heart of the company's power and spoken to Aldrin Voss directly. That alone made people curious. On the 15th floor, in a small office filled with blinking monitors, a young technician named Mara leaned closer to her coworker. "You didn't hear it from me," she said in a low voice. "But I heard Rowan say she's still alive, his daughter, the one from the Tau Ceti mission." Her coworker frowned. That mission was a disaster. The report said the team never came back. "That's what the official report says," Mara replied. "But if he has proof, then someone's lying." The coworker turned back to his console, but his mind was no longer on his work. The idea that Helix Corp might have hidden. The truth was dangerous even to think about. Meanwhile, Rowan was in the lower maintenance levels of the tower. His workspace was small, with shelves lined with tools and spare parts. A steaming mug of black coffee sat on the table beside him, untouched. He wasn't working on any repairs today. Instead, he was looking at the same set of encrypted messages he had shown Aldrin Voss the night before. The messages were short, filled with codes and abbreviations, but Rowan understood them. He had spent the last year gathering pieces of information, fragments from data caches, security camera logs, and old communications routed through the company's hidden networks. It had taken patience, skill, and a lot of luck. Each time he found something, it confirmed what he already believed. Lyra was alive. She was somewhere far from Earth, and Helix Corp was keeping her there for a reason they refused to explain. A small knock came at the door. Rowan looked up to see Mara standing in the doorway. She was young, with sharp eyes and quick movements, like someone who noticed more than she should. "I heard what happened last night," she said quietly. Rowan said nothing. He didn't like speaking about it unless he had to. "I believe you," she continued, "about your daughter. I've seen strange things in the data systems, files that don't match the public reports, and I know they've been locking entire sectors of the mainframe with encryption so strong it doesn't even match standard company security." Rowan studied her for a moment. He wasn't sure if she was offering help or just looking for excitement. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "Because if they're hiding someone on a station out there and that someone is your daughter, you're not going to get her back by walking into the boardroom again. You'll need more than proof. You'll need access." Rowan leaned back slightly. "And you can get that?" Mara hesitated before answering. "Not directly, but I know someone who can." The hum of the maintenance level filled the silence between them. Rowan wasn't quick to trust people, but if Mara had truly seen locked files in the system, it meant she was already closer to the truth than most employees. "Tell me," Rowan said at last. She stepped inside and closed the door. "There's an old network engineer named Kale. He doesn't work for Helix Corp anymore, but when he did, he helped design the Tau Ceti station's security architecture. If anyone knows how to reach it without permission, it's him." Rowan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Where is he now?" "Off-grid," Mara replied. "He lives in the lower districts near the dockyards. You'll have to find him yourself." Rowan stood, picking up his jacket from the back of his chair. "Then that's where I'm going." Before he could leave, Mara placed a small data chip on the table. "Take this. It's a map of the station's communication relays. I pulled it from a backup server before they locked it. If you find Kale, he'll know what to do with it." Rowan picked up the chip and slipped it into his pocket. "Why help me?" Mara gave a faint smile. "Because if they can do this to your daughter, they can do it to anyone. And I'd like to think people like you still have a chance to win." Rowan left the maintenance level and stepped into the bustling streets outside the tower. The lower districts of New Avalon were nothing, like the shining upper city. Here, the buildings were older, the streets narrower, and the air filled with the distant hum of machinery from the shipyards. He walked with steady purpose, passing stalls selling spare engine parts, old navigational charts, and tools worn smooth from years of use. The smell of fuel mixed with the scent of hot food from street vendors. People moved quickly here, their faces marked by long hours of work. Finally, Rowan stopped in front of a narrow building with peeling paint. A small sign above the door read, "Kale Systems, Repairs and Custom Work." The front windows were dusty, but faint light glowed inside. Rowan pushed the door open. The bell above it gave a tired ring. Inside, shelves were lined with old consoles, tangled wires, and half-assembled drones. Behind the counter sat a man with short gray hair and a mechanical brace on his left arm. He looked up slowly when Rowan entered. "You're not here for repairs," Kale said, his voice flat but sharp. "With observation." "No," Rowan replied. "I'm here because I need to reach Tau Ceti Station. And you're the only one who can get me there." Kale leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "You must be Rowan Hale." Rowan was silent for a moment. "How do you know my name?" "Because I read the company's alerts," Kale said. "And when a janitor walks into the top floor and talks back to Aldrin Voss, that's news worth noticing." Rowan placed the data chip Mara had given him on the counter. "I have this. I have reason to believe my daughter is on that station. I just need a way in." Kale picked up the chip and examined it. His expression shifted just slightly. "You're not asking for something small. Getting into that station without clearance is like walking into a locked vault on another planet." "Then tell me how to do it," Rowan said. Kale looked at him for a long time before speaking again. Meet me here tomorrow night. Bring nothing that can be traced. If we do this, there's no turning back. Rowan nodded once. I understand. As he stepped back into the streets, the sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the dockyards. Somewhere beyond those skies, his daughter was waiting, and now Rowan had taken his first step toward reaching her. The next evening, the lower districts of New Avalon were alive with the sound of ship engines and the distant rumble of cargo haulers moving through the dockyards. The sky was a deep shade of blue, scattered with the lights of arriving and departing shuttles. In the narrow streets, shadows stretched between old metal buildings, their surfaces worn smooth by years of wind and rain. Rowan walked toward the small shop where Cale worked. He had spent the day preparing, leaving behind anything that could be tracked, memorizing routes through the city that would keep him unnoticed, and carrying only the small encrypted tablet that held the files about his daughter. When he stepped through the shop's door, the tired bell above it gave its familiar ring. Cale was behind the counter again, but this time the workbench was cleared. 2 sealed packs sat on the surface, along with a folded map printed on synthetic paper. You're on time, Cale said without looking up. He was adjusting a small, handheld scanner with careful movements. You said to bring nothing traceable, Rowan replied. I didn't. Cale finally glanced at him. Good. We won't have long to talk. The less the walls hear, the better. Rowan moved closer, his eyes on the items laid out. What's this? Everything you'll need to reach Tau Ceti Station, Cale said. And a warning. Once you start, you can't stop halfway. The company doesn't want anyone near that station. If they see you coming, they'll make sure you never get close enough to ask questions. Rowan nodded slowly. I understand. Cale tapped the folded map. This is the station's communication relay network. Your friend Mara gave you part of it, but this is the complete structure. I built it when I worked for them. The relays form a protective shield of linked beacons around the station. To pass through, you'll need to enter at a specific point where the signal overlap is weakest. That point changes every 24 hours. Miss it, and you'll be locked out. Rowan studied the map. How far from the planet is it? Far enough to be invisible to civilian scanners, Cale said. The station orbits the outer edge of Tau Ceti's third moon. They keep it off the standard charts. Anyone who doesn't know it's there will never find it. Rowan's voice was steady when he spoke again. And my daughter? Cale paused before answering. If she's still there, she's in the restricted research sector. That's where they hold anything or anyone connected to the alien signal. I don't know what they've been doing, but the few messages I've intercepted suggest she's part of a long-term project. That means she's valuable to them. That's the only reason she might still be alive. Rowan felt a tightness in his chest at the words. What are they trying to do with her? Cale's voice lowered. Helix Corp made contact with something out there, something intelligent. Your daughter has skills they need to understand it. They want that knowledge before anyone else can claim it. But they can't risk letting the truth spread. So they keep her where nobody can reach her. Rowan thought of Lyra's bright eyes when she used to talk about her work, how she dreamed of finding a voice beyond the stars. She had been excited when Helix Corp offered her a place on the Tau Ceti mission. Now that same mission had trapped her far from home. What will it take to get inside? Rowan asked. Cale picked up one of the sealed packs and slid it toward him. This contains a false maintenance ID for the station. It's old, but should still pass the first level of scans. The second pack is a portable signal scrambler, small enough to carry in your hand. Once you're close, activate it to confuse the station's perimeter sensors for a short time. You'll have maybe 6 minutes before they reset. Rowan opened the pack enough to see the small device inside, its surface marked with faint etchings from years of use. You'll also need transport, Cale continued. I know a pilot who won't ask questions as long as you pay in advance. He can take you within range of the station's relay gap. After that, you'll be on your own." Rowan nodded once. "What about after I find her?" Cale's expression hardened. "That's the part I can't help with. If she's in the research sector, you'll have to get past multiple security levels to reach her. And once you do, you'll need a way out that doesn't bring every guard in the place down on you. Getting in is hard. Getting out might be impossible." Rowan's eyes stayed fixed on the map. "I'll get her out, no matter what it takes." There was a moment of silence between them, broken only by the faint hum of the shop's old power unit. Finally, Cale pushed the scanner toward him. "Take this too. It's tuned to detect the energy signature from the alien technology they've been studying. If you can't find her by sight, follow the readings. If she's working on the device, this will lead you to it." Rowan took the scanner and placed it carefully in his pack. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow night," Cale said. "The relay gap will open at 0200 hours. Be at Dock 7 by midnight. The pilot will be waiting." Rowan gave a short nod and turned to go. But before he reached the door, Cale's voice stopped him. "One more thing," Cale said. "You're walking into something bigger than you know. Whatever they found out there, it's important enough that Helix Corp is willing to hide people, erase records, and keep entire stations off the charts. That's not just business, that's fear." Rowan looked back at him. "Then they should be afraid of me too." When Rowan stepped into the street, the air was cool and heavy with the scent of fuel from the shipyards. Cargo drones buzzed overhead, carrying sealed containers toward waiting freighters. Somewhere above the clouds, the stars were beginning to shine. He walked with purpose through the busy district, but his thoughts were on Lyra. Every piece of information he gathered pulled her image closer into focus. Her face, her voice, the way she used to laugh when she was younger. He could almost hear her now. As he passed through a crowded market street, a group of dock workers moved aside for a convoy of robotic loaders. One of the workers, a broad man with a weathered face, gave Rowan a brief nod of recognition. It was a small thing, but Rowan noticed. Word of what happened in the boardroom had reached more people than he expected. By the time he reached his small apartment, the city's lower levels were lit by the warm glow of street lamps and the flicker of neon signs. Inside, he sat at a narrow table and unfolded the map again. The routes, the relay gap, the timing. He memorized every detail until the lines and symbols were fixed in his mind. Tomorrow night, the journey would begin. The path ahead was dangerous, but the truth was now clear. Helix Corp wasn't just keeping his daughter away from him. They were hiding something that could change the way humanity saw the universe. And Rowan Hale was ready to risk everything to bring her home. Midnight came quietly to Dock 7. The dockyard was a mix of shadows and silver light from the tall lamps overhead. Cargo cranes stood like silent giants, their arms reaching over stacks of containers. Beyond them, the dark shapes of small ships waited on their landing pads, engines cold and still. Rowan moved through the dock with steady steps, carrying nothing more than a small pack slung over his shoulder. Inside were the false maintenance ID, the portable signal scrambler, and the energy scanner Cale had given him. His clothes were plain, the kind a dock worker might wear, and his cap was pulled low to hide his face from casual glances. Dock 7 was quieter than the others. Most of the big cargo runs had left earlier in the evening. Only a few ships remained, each one belonging to pilots who preferred to work outside company schedules. Rowan spotted a small transport vessel on the far side of the dock. It was a short-range model with a patched hull and dull gray paint. The pilot was leaning against the side, checking a data pad. He was a tall man with a lean build, a weathered face, and eyes that moved like they measured everything. "You're Hale?" the pilot asked without looking up. "Yes," Rowan replied. The pilot gave a small nod and slipped the data pad into his jacket. "Name's Varric. Cale says you pay well and ask no questions. Works fine for me. You have the credits?" Rowan handed over a thin card. Varric scanned it with a small device, then slid it into his pocket. "Get on board. We leave now." Inside, the ship was cramped but clean. The cockpit had 2 seats, one for the pilot and one for a passenger. Behind it was a narrow corridor leading to a small storage bay. The hum of the ship's systems filled the air as Varric powered up the engines. They lifted off smoothly, gliding above the dockyard lights before breaking into the open night sky. The curve of New Avalon's upper city came into view, its towers, glowing like a cluster of stars. Then the ship angled upward, and the city fell away beneath them. The atmosphere thinned, and the blackness of space opened around them. Stars glittered in every direction, and the faint blue light of the planet's horizon glowed behind them. Varric kept his eyes on the controls. "We'll reach the Tau Ceti system in 6 hours," he said. "I'll drop you near the relay gap. You'll be close enough to reach the station in a small shuttle, but far enough that their scanners won't notice me. After that, you're on your own." Rowan gave a short nod. "That's all I need." For the first few hours, the journey was quiet. The ship's engines gave a steady low hum, and the stars outside shifted slowly as they moved through space. Rowan sat in silence, his thoughts on Lyra. Every image of her pushed him forward. Her determined voice, the way she used to stay up late reading alien language studies, the smile she gave when she finally solved a difficult problem. Halfway through the journey, Varric spoke again. "You must know they won't just let you walk in there. Tau Ceti Station isn't some cargo hub. It's locked down, guarded, and run by people who don't like uninvited guests." "I know," Rowan said, "but I also know I've been invisible to them for years. That's what I'm counting on." Varric glanced at him briefly. "Invisible or not, once you're inside, you'll be in their world. And their world is made of walls." Rowan's eyes stayed on the stars. "Every wall has a weak point. You just have to find it." When the ship reached the edge of the Tau Ceti system, the view outside changed. The distant glow of the system's main star lit the curve of a gas giant, its swirling bands of orange and white turning slowly in the dark. 3 moons circled it, each one pale against the black of space. Varric pointed toward the 3rd moon. "That's your target. The station orbits just beyond it, hidden behind the relay beacons. The gap opens in less than 20 minutes. You'll need to move fast." Rowan stood and moved to the small storage bay. A compact shuttle sat there, folded into its docking cradle. He powered it on, the controls lighting up in soft green. The signal scrambler rested in his jacket pocket, ready for use. Varric watched from the cockpit. "When you come back, if you come back, don't try to contact me on open channels. Leave a message with Kale. If you don't make it, I was never here." Rowan gave a small, respectful nod. "Understood." He stepped into the shuttle, sealed the hatch, and released it from the docking cradle. The small craft drifted clear of Varric's ship before its engines came to life. In the quiet of space, the shuttle felt even smaller, like a single grain of dust moving between stars. The navigation screen showed the relay network ahead, a shifting web of faint energy lines connecting the beacons. Rowan adjusted his course, toward the point where 2 lines moved apart, leaving a narrow gap. He activated the signal scrambler. A soft pulse of static filled the cockpit speakers as the device began sending false readings into the surrounding space. The relay beacons wavered slightly on the navigation screen, their readings confused by the interference. Rowan's hands stayed steady on the controls. The gap widened on the screen, and he pushed the shuttle forward, sliding through the space. Between the relay signals, on the other side, the station came into view. Tau Ceti Station was larger than he expected, a ring of metal and glass surrounding a central core, with long docking arms extending like spokes from its outer edge. Lights dotted its surface, but many of its windows were dark. Rowan's shuttle glided closer. The outer docking bays were empty, and no patrol ships were visible. He kept his course steady, using the false maintenance ID Cale had given him. The station's first security scan passed without alarm. As the shuttle approached the second perimeter, Rowan's grip tightened on the controls. This was where the real risk began. The scanners here were designed to catch anyone who didn't belong. A green light blinked on the panel. Access granted. Rowan exhaled slowly. He guided the shuttle into a narrow docking tunnel and felt the faint vibration as the clamps locked it into place. Through the cockpit window, he could see the inside of the docking bay. It was clean and quiet, with only a few maintenance drones, moving between parked shuttles. Beyond them, a set of sliding doors led deeper into the station. Rowan powered down the shuttle and took one last look at the scanner Cale had given him. The readings were faint now, but the signal was there, coming from somewhere deep inside. He stepped out into the cool air of the docking bay. The doors ahead waited, closed, and silent. Rowan Hale had made it past the first walls. Now he had to break through the rest. The docking bay was still as Rowan stepped forward. His boots made soft echoes against the smooth metal floor. The air was cooler here than in the shuttle, carrying a faint scent of recycled oxygen mixed with oil. He moved toward the sliding doors, at the far end. They opened with a gentle hiss, revealing a narrow corridor lined with silver panels and soft ceiling lights. The hum of the station's systems vibrated through the walls. Rowan kept his head down as two maintenance drones rolled past him, their lights flickering blue as they scanned the floor. The false maintenance ID in his jacket continued to do its work, feeding harmless data to the station's security system. The scanner Cale had given him showed a faint signal, pulsing slowly. It was coming from deep inside the station. Rowan adjusted his route to match its direction. After several turns, he reached a wide hallway with large windows looking out into space. The gas giant's orange and white surface swirled slowly beyond the glass, filling the view. A pair of station guards stood near a side entrance, their black uniforms marked with the Helix Corp emblem. Rowan walked past without breaking stride. The guards gave him a glance but didn't stop him. The ID was still holding. He reached a service lift at the end of the hall and stepped inside. The lift hummed softly as it descended. The scanner's signal grew stronger. He was getting closer. When the doors opened, Rowan found himself in a quieter part of the station. The walls here were darker, the lighting dimmer. There were no windows, only long corridors branching in different directions. He took a step forward and stopped. From the shadows ahead, a familiar figure stepped into view. Aldrin Voss, the CEO of Helix Corp, stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His suit was perfect, his expression calm. Two guards flanked him, standing like statues. Rowan's eyes narrowed slightly. "You came to meet me yourself." Aldrin gave a faint smile. "I believe in efficiency. And in certain cases, it is better to speak face to face, rather than let events spiral out of control." "You already tried to stop me," Rowan said. "It didn't work." Aldrin took a slow step forward. "You are here because you believe. Your daughter is somewhere inside this station. I am here to tell you that removing her will cause far more damage than you can imagine." Rowan's voice stayed steady. "You think I care about your warnings?" "You should," Aldrin said, his tone as smooth as glass. "Lyra is involved in work that could reshape humanity's future. The signal we discovered is unlike anything we have seen. If she leaves before her task is complete, the message may never be fully understood." "She's not your property," Rowan said. "No," Aldrin agreed, "but she is vital. She has a skill no one else on this station possesses, and she is close to completing something that cannot be interrupted. If you take her now, the opportunity will be lost." Rowan took a step forward. The only thing being lost is her life with her family. She didn't come here to disappear. Aldrin's expression hardened. "You speak as though this is a simple matter." It is not. There are worlds watching us. The information in that signal could bring alliances or conflicts. If we make the wrong move, it could start a chain of events that no one can stop. Rowan's voice lowered. Then maybe you're not the one who should decide. The two men stood facing each other. In the dim corridor, the hum of the station's systems filling the silence. The guards remained still, but their eyes followed Rowan's every move. Aldrin broke the quiet first. I could have you detained right now. You have no legal authority here, but I am giving you a choice. Walk away, and I will allow you to speak to your daughter. She will remain on the station, but you will know she is alive and safe. Or you can keep going down this path and force me to take steps you will not like. Rowan's eyes didn't move from the CEO's face. You think seeing her without taking her home is enough for me? You're wrong. Aldrin gave a slow nod, as if he had expected the answer. Then you leave me no choice. The guard stepped forward, but Rowan was already moving. He turned down a side corridor, his boots striking the floor in quick, measured steps. The scanner in his hand pulsed faster now. He could hear the guards behind him, their footsteps echoing in pursuit. Rowan reached a junction and slipped through a narrow service door. The space beyond was tight, filled with pipes and conduit lines running along the walls. He moved quickly, guided by the steady signal from the scanner. The service tunnel twisted and turned. The sound of the guards faded as Rowan put distance between them. The signal grew stronger still, pulling him deeper into the heart of the station. Finally, he reached a sealed bulkhead door with a small control panel. The scanner's pulse was strong here. Lyra was close. Rowan pulled the signal scrambler from his jacket and held it near the panel. The lights flickered as the door's lock hesitated, then slid open with a soft hiss. Beyond the door was a large chamber. The walls were lined with panels covered in alien symbols, glowing faintly in shades of blue and white. In the center of the room stood a glass-walled workspace, and inside it, Lyra. She was seated at a console, her eyes moving between streams of alien text and diagrams. Her hair was longer now, and her face looked pale under the soft lights. But she was focused and alert. She didn't notice him at first. Rowan stepped forward, his voice quiet but firm. Lyra, she turned. For a moment, disbelief crossed her face. Then her eyes widened. Dad? Rowan's heart tightened at the sound of her voice. Before they could speak further, the door behind him slid open again. Aldrin stood there, calm as ever, the guards at his side. You see, Aldrin said evenly, she is alive. She is safe. And she is working on something greater than either of us. Rowan didn't move. His eyes stayed on Lyra. We're leaving, Aldrin's voice sharpened. If you take her now, you may destroy everything she has worked for. You will force me to act, and you will regret it. Rowan looked at his daughter. Do you want to stay? Lyra hesitated, her gaze moving between the alien symbols on the screens and her father's face. I want to finish this, she said quietly. But I also want to go home. The air between them was heavy with the choice ahead. Aldrin waited, his expression unreadable. Rowan stood ready, knowing whatever decision came next would decide everything. Rowan stood in the dim maintenance bay of Helix Corp's orbital transfer station. The cold metal floor vibrated faintly under his boots, a reminder of the powerful engines humming deep within the structure. He had waited years for this moment and planned every detail carefully. He was no longer just a quiet janitor sweeping floors. He was a father on a mission. The station was buzzing with activity because of the sudden systems failure he had triggered from the ground level earlier. Technicians in gray uniforms rushed between panels, repairing flickering lights and rebooting control consoles. No one noticed Rowan as he moved among them. He carried a toolbox, his cover as a temporary maintenance lead, giving him a shield against suspicion. Years of working in the shadows had taught him how to blend in and how to walk with the quiet confidence of someone who belonged. His goal was clear. The restricted science wing, high on the station's north axis, held the chamber where Lyra was kept. She was the key to the alien message, and Helix Corp wanted to keep her isolated until they could control the knowledge she possessed. Rowan's heart tightened at the thought of his daughter alone in a strange place, facing pressures no one her age should face. He took an elevator that required both a key card and a biometric scan. The card had been copied from a senior engineer weeks ago, and the biometric scanner accepted his print thanks to a clever layer of thin polymer that mimicked the real engineer's hand. The doors slid shut, and the soft hum of the lift carried him upward through the station's levels. The corridors here were quieter, the air cooler. There were fewer people, and the security cameras seemed to watch more closely. Rowan walked, with steady steps, toolbox in hand, as though he was on an urgent repair call. When a guard nodded at him in passing, he returned the nod without hesitation. He had learned that the best way to hide was to act as though nothing was unusual. Last he reached the final security door. It was guarded by 2 sentries wearing the deep blue of Helix Corp's private security division. Rowan approached calmly, showing them a small data pad with a maintenance order flashing on the screen. The order was fake, but the guards had no reason to doubt it during the station's chaotic repairs. They scanned his card and let him through without a word. Inside, the lighting shifted to a soft blue glow. The walls curved inward, and faint vibrations filled the air, almost like a distant song. Rowan moved quickly, following the signs to Containment Chamber 7. Each step brought back memories of the day he had last seen Lyra, waving to him from the small shuttle that had taken her to her first off-world mission. She had been so proud and full of curiosity. That light in her eyes had always been his strength. He stopped in front of the chamber's reinforced glass wall. Inside, Lyra sat in a chair surrounded by an arc of alien technology. Thin strands of glowing material extended from the structure to a crown-like device on her head. Her eyes were open, but she looked distant, as if her mind was far away. Rowan's chest tightened. He stepped forward, tapping the manual release panel. The door opened with a slow hiss, and Rowan entered. The room was filled with a soft, rhythmic pulse, as though the alien machine was breathing. Lyra turned her head slightly, and her gaze sharpened. When she saw him, her lips parted in surprise. "Dad." "You came," she whispered, her voice trembling. He knelt beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "I told you I would," he said. "We're going home." Lyra's eyes filled with relief, but she glanced toward the door. "They won't let me leave," she said. "The message is almost complete. If I stop now, they say it will be lost." Rowan looked at the alien construct. The glowing strands pulsed gently, almost like veins carrying light instead of blood. "Then we take it with us," he replied firmly. Working quickly, he examined the connectors linking the device to Lyra. They were made of a flexible material, warm to the touch. He found the release points and gently detached them, careful not to cause any harm. As the last strand disconnected, the pulsing light dimmed, and Lyra slumped slightly. Rowan caught her and helped her stand. A soft alarm began to sound, not loud, but enough to tell him their time was short. He guided Lyra toward the hallway, keeping his pace steady so as not to draw attention immediately. They passed the security doctor before the guards realized what was happening, but shouts soon followed. Rowan activated the emergency maintenance lock on the nearest corridor door, sealing it behind them. Lyra moved beside him, still weak, but walking on her own. "Dad, the message. It's important," she said quietly as they moved. "It's not just words. It's an invitation." He gave her a quick glance. "From the aliens?" She nodded. "They want to meet us. They've been waiting a long time." They reached a service lift that descended directly to the cargo bay. Rowan knew the maintenance crews used it to avoid the main security checkpoints. As they stepped inside, the doors closed and the lift began to move. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. For years he had lived in silence, planning in shadows, all for this single chance to bring his daughter home. The cargo bay was bustling, filled with containers and equipment being loaded for transport. Rowan guided Lyra toward a small maintenance shuttle on the far side. It was old but reliable, and more importantly, it had its own launch controls. He had already programmed it to depart the moment they boarded. As they climbed inside, the station's intercom crackled to life with an urgent announcement ordering all decks to secure exits. Rowan powered up the shuttle, feeling the familiar vibration of the engines beneath his feet. The docking clamps released with a metallic clang, and the shuttle drifted free into the black expanse of space. Through the window, the massive structure of the station began to shrink behind them. Lyra sat beside him, her eyes still on the stars. "You risked everything," she said softly. Rowan looked at her and gave a small smile. "You're my daughter. There was never a choice." She reached for his hand, holding it tightly as the shuttle sped away toward the safety of deep space. Somewhere out there, Rowan knew, the truth Lyra carried could change the fate of humanity. But for now, all that mattered was that they were together again. The shuttle glided silently through the vast darkness of space. Outside, stars blinked like distant fires, and the curve of the Tau Ceti system slowly faded behind them. Rowan sat beside Lyra, his heart still pounding from the escape, but filled with hope. Lyra's eyes shone softly as she looked out the window. "We made it, Dad," she said quietly. "We really made it." Rowan smiled. "We did. And now we can decide what happens next." The shuttle's small cabin was warm and quiet, a sharp contrast to the cold, harsh world they had just left. Lyra reached into her bag and pulled out a small device, the alien artifact she had been working on. It was delicate, glowing faintly, with colors that shifted and shimmered like a living thing. "This is what they were studying," Lyra explained. "It's a message. Not just words or pictures, but something more. A signal meant to connect us with others in the universe." Rowan studied the device carefully. "And you want to share it?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, but carefully. If Helix Corp controls it, they could use it to gain power. But if it belongs to everyone, it could change everything. It could bring new friends, new knowledge, new possibilities." Rowan understood then what his daughter had been fighting for all this time. It was not just survival. It was hope. For the next few hours, they planned their next move. Returning to Earth openly was too dangerous. Helix Corp had resources and reach that could capture them again. Instead, they decided to head for the outer colonies, places beyond the company's control. "We'll find allies," Lyra said. "Scientists and explorers who want to understand, not own. Together, we can make sure this message reaches the right hands." Rowan nodded. "And I'll protect you, no matter what." As they navigated through space, Rowan reflected on how much had changed. He was no longer the silent janitor, invisible and ignored. He was a father fighting for his daughter and a future bigger than himself. Days passed as the shuttle crossed star systems. They stopped at small stations to gather supplies and information, careful to stay hidden. Along the way, Lyra shared stories of the alien signal, how it had started as a faint pattern in the background of space, growing clearer with time, showing signs of intelligence and intent. Rowan listened, fascinated. It was a reminder that humanity was not alone, and that the universe held mysteries waiting to be discovered. One evening, as the shuttle drifted near a colorful nebula, Lyra turned to Rowan. "Thank you for believing in me, for never giving up." Rowan smiled. You were never alone. We were always together, even when we were apart. Their bond was stronger than ever. Together, they faced an uncertain future. But it was a future they would build themselves, as the stars stretched out before them. Rowan and Lyra prepared to send the alien message to trusted allies. It was a step toward a new beginning, one filled with promise and hope. The quiet janitor had found his voice. The daughter had found her, freedom, and the universe was waiting.